Hello, hello. Welcome back. Sorry about last week. It was a cluster. That happens sometimes because life. It's funny when I think I get out in front of something and then I was like, shit. So here we are today, and it's the perfect timing because timing is always perfect. This is ArcheTAP. Every week we kind of just hang out and chat a little bit about a different archetype. Right now we are working our way through the major arcana series. And we are on number 11 tonight, which I'll get into a little bit more because it's a bit confusing. This one and number 8 is the only one that is sort of confusing. But first and foremost, let's talk about what an archetype is. An archetype, as defined by Richard Rudd, who is sort of my personal, I love his writing. He invented the gene keys and works in human design. He defines archetype as a compressed idea containing many dimensions of meaning, imagery, and feeling. Archetypes resonate with deep universal themes in our unconscious and conscious mind of all human beings, regardless of their race, regardless of their conditioning, their genetics. And when you contemplate an archetype for a prolonged period of time and begin to identify with it, it has the capacity to transform your vibration from a lower state to a higher state. So that's what we're really doing, but we're kind of putting it in a fun format. So we chat, we tap, and then we meditate on the archetype, which to me is fun when I go back, because obviously when I'm teaching them, I'm not meditating with you. But when I go back and do them on my own, it's a really fun exercise to explore and just sort of ask yourself some questions that maybe you've not asked yourself before. So here we go. Tonight is strength, and it's also called the force. So I've got two different versions of what this card looks like. This is the Universal Weight Tarot, and this is card number 8. And it's intertwined with the Justice card. The Rider Waite Tarot is probably the most famous, and it came out in 1910. A.E. White published it, and when he published it, he changed the numbers, and he put this card as number 8 and Justice as number 11. So we just crossed through the halfway point of the major arcana. The reason that he did this was he got like a ton of flack for it and pushback. His thinking most likely was that from an astrological point of view, the number 8 aligns with Leo. It's a strength number in that way. But from a numerology point of view, the number 8 is the sign of infinity, and that makes more sense with Libra. So they get kind of messy and out of order. But really, it doesn't matter because the major arcana is telling a story from start to finish of the Fool going on a journey, right? Where he's going through his life, he's picking up tools along the way, he's learning from his mistakes, he's gaining wisdom, he's moving through these different mental, spiritual, physicality parts of life. And when we get to this part, it doesn't necessarily matter whether or not he found balance or strength first. He finds them both, and whatever. So, but I wanted to touch on that again because it comes up with these two cards in particular. But today we are Jedis. This is the strength. This is, if you were born in November, this is your childlike essence that you'll carry with you into your maturity, which is sort of fun. It's Leo in astrology. Like I said, Leo energy is big. I don't know if either of you know any Leos in your life, but they tend to know that they're Leos very much. So that's an archetype in and of itself. They're enthusiastic, they're inspiring, they're confident, they've got a lot of vitality. Those are kind of archetypal words that go along with Leo energy. And then when we get into John Randolph Price's work, he calls this card the angel of strength and will, which I'll dive into in just a moment too. he claims that the name of this archetype is the daughter of the flaming sword, and that the best version of this in our own history that we could maybe talk about is Joan of Arc. So that kind of energy, like positive keywords around this are going to be, you know, courageous, brave, valiant, powerful, balanced, bold. Balanced, really key one there for me to take home. Um, confident, desirable. It's like gentle strength, you know? And then some negative keywords: impatient, rigid, really forceful. She can be cruel. She can be violent. And when she's scared, it can feel like being locked in a cage, like really repressed energy, as opposed to this big, powerful energy. So the force is the archetype of strength. And it's about absolute mastery over animal instincts. So really what we're talking about is that primal part of the brain that wants to jump into fight, flight, fear, fawn, freeze, whatever, you know, whatever your version of your animal instinct is. So it's definitely a feminine archetype. This is a very much a warrior energy, and she's a Jedi by nature. We want to get to a place where we're embodying an archetype like this and we can become unmoved by things. So she helps us awaken this inner power within us just by like calling on that, by setting an intention in that way. She's in control of her impulses. I laugh only because I'm laughing at myself. Um, she's mysterious. She's, you know, in her glory. She's this like, she's got a deep understanding of emotional power, and she's here to express that. Yeah, must be nice. Exactly. I have no idea what discipline looks like most of the time. But she is a servant to this, and it's her, you know, kind of like it's her call to serve humanity in that way. And so she does, but it's not necessarily about physical strength. So it's much deeper than that. So the shadowier side of her, she can be really aggressive. She can be a bully. And then on the opposite flip of that is like repressing so much of our own life force, her own life force, that she just becomes stuck in a prison that she made, you know? So there's a need to find self-control. There's a need to find courage and discipline within those three words. And really that she's here to remind us that there is an inner power within me that can get me out of any situation and succeed. There's an inner power within me that can get me out of any situation and succeed. And I am my only fucking problem. And usually it's my pride. So we want to get to a place, right? Like this card, this archetype is like she's unmovable, regardless of the news. So on any given day, if she loses her job, if she loses the relationship, if she loses all of her money, whatever the fuck it is, she has this attitude of like, none of these things move me. None of these things, you know, really affect like what's going on in here. So one of the questions when I was writing this class that Price asked, he's like, how many times have you died in your own life? I was like, like, fuck, a lot, too many, you know, like I've died a lot of deaths in my own lifetime. We all have, like, whether it's rejection, whether it's a complete meltdown from a loss of something, like we all know what that feels like. And if we don't, then that's also a problem. You know, because on the other side of that, if we're not showing our emotion, like we want to meet in the middle. We want to be courageous, but we've felt defeated before. You know, and so we have to honor that too. So where the fuck do we find this power? we have all put a block inside of us, and it's this self-defeating thing that we're doing to ourselves. And the number one way that we can get out of our own way and to really undo this block is to stop criticism, both in our thoughts and in our words. It's destructive, it's poisonous, and the criticizer suffers the most always, you know. Um, in the simplest of terms, even though it was like hard to write this in my notes, it's like a critical mind is a cowardly mind. Like it's um at the root, oftentimes it's resentment. And it can almost always be traced back to wounded pride. And then if you trace that further back, it almost always goes back to some ego fear of rejection, you know? So we have all these labels that we put on the world outside of us, and we try to be as open-minded as we possibly can, but it often still comes out as criticism. And it's hard not to, because we get fed that too, right? Like it's not necessarily our fault. We got programmed really well, really excellently. So we want to be able to keep it together during a crisis. It's like we want to become unmoved and to really feel strong, which is like firmness and fortitude and feeling like you have a backbone. And with that comes this knowing of the will. So we want strength and we want the willpower, right? And willpower is purpose and determination and resolution. It's a fusion of these two things, especially between the heart and the mind. And when felt, like alignment feels fucking great. It feels juicy. You know you're in it when you feel it. It's this awesome energy that flows from your super mind, from like Abraham Hicks, they call it the vortex. Like it's a sensation that you can learn to train. Like that's where you want to go, is how I want to say that. But let's talk about will, because it's a fun conversation, right? Uh, we want to talk about free will a lot. And because we talk about free will and God's will, we never really recognize that they're the same thing. That our free will is our free use of God's will, which whatever name you use for God, universe, whatever, which is a super concentrated form of divine consciousness. So I'm going to say that again because it's sort of messy. So when we talk about free will and God's will, we talk about them without realizing that they're the same thing. And our free will is our free use of God's will. So what that means is that our intuitive guidance, the hits that we get when we have a desire about something, anything, our dreams, like where we want to go, where are we going in this world, all of that, our loving intentions that we would set every day or whatever, all of it represents the like capital M, capital S, master self, the highest version, the God particle within you. And to accept anything less than the highest of what you want and desire out of your life is to deny that will of God, which is heavy, sort of, but I want it to be fun. You know, like in the same way that you could say that and be like, fuck, that feels like so heavy. And now I have to really think about that. The potentials within that are incredible because it really frees you up. It frees you up to think bigger for yourself. I think it's so easy to, you know, keep trying to like conform to the ruts that society, you know, puts in place. They're easy to fall into. Like I do A, B, C, and D, you know, I go to school and then I get the degree and then I get the job and then I get the family and then I do the whatevers. And like, and that's all wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it if you want that. but like sometimes there are a lot of people out in this world that went into that cultural rut and now find themselves being like, oh shit, I wasn't paying attention at all to anything that lit me up, or because we're not taught this stuff. And it not only are we not taught it, but we're kind of told it's self-indulgent. Um, and that's a shame because it's really such a part of us. So I guess if there's a takeaway from any of this, it's to please own your desires because they are the will of God also. So did we already talk about, not if we talked about the symbols and the cards? No, okay. So they're really, really similar. I mean, mostly here, this one's sort of holographic, so it's harder to see in the light, but like ultimately, homegirl is hanging out with the lion and she's got a hand either in said mouth or near it enough to like be facing that kind of fear. And regardless of the number here, both of them have this infinity symbol above their head. So they're in the vortex, they're in the force. The lion is the wild part of us, the part that will, needs to be tamed, that can go kind of crazy if left unchallenged. And that infinity symbol spiral is the vortex. The maiden is there to represent that softness, that there is a warrior in there, but it's soft. It's not, which I think, again, personally can be a problem that I have showing up in my life. And then it's not in the back of this one, but in the universal, there's mountains. So again, it's just like stable, right? Like mountains are such a symbol of stability. They don't move very quickly, slowly over time. Okay, so that's the force. So we talked about a little bit. That's where we're going. We want to embody these things. We want to not let the news of the world or the news of our own personal life like knock us around so much that we lose our shit. We want to be able to come to a place where it's not so like all the time. So sit up nice and tall. We're going to start tapping. Take a big, deep, letting go breath. And repeat after me. Sometimes I feel stuck in my own prison. Like my life force is trying to squeeze into a teeny tiny box. I have a need for discipline, self-control in my life. Yet I let the news that I receive on any given day kind of blow me around like leaves in the wind. And some days I feel the exact opposite. The shadow that pops up almost looks too aggressive. Sometimes I can try to be too strong. So even though I'm not always as strong as I'd like to be, and also sometimes I need to find more gentleness, I choose to deeply and completely love and accept and forgive myself. Okay, so we've loaded the problem, top of the head. Sometimes I'm too aggressive, almost bully-like. And sometimes I feel so repressed, just stuck in my own prison. The news keeps me unstable. There is always some new problem to worry about. So how do I find the power? I am choosing to remove any block that I might have accidentally put there. And I have decided that criticism is a zero-sum game. It's too destructive. It's a luxury I can't afford. Because it poisons me. So I am taking my wounded pride and I am choosing to become a warrior with Jedi-like nature, in control of my impulses. And I choose to deeply understand the power of my emotions. And I like to remind myself there is an inner power in me that can handle any situation and fucking succeed. Through my thoughts, I align my heart and my head. I find strength in creating this really awesome energy that represents my higher self. And so it is. Okay. So we've talked about it, we've tapped on it a little bit. Now we're going to meditate with it. I do these things in this order. I really think it's purposeful by nature, as I'm learning from feedback over time, that like getting the brain to calm down in this way, it's like fun, and then we calm, and then we can really get pretty deep into meditation, which is super fun. But a couple heads up, I'm going to cue you through the meditation, but I want you to take it where you want it to go. Like, I will give you some visual cues, but if something different comes up for you, please go where you go. And then I'm going to leave you in the meditation. I've kind of decided too that I prefer it that way. So I'm going to gently back out. You'll hear the meeting end, but stay there as long as you want. Especially this one, I have quite a few questions for you guys to ask. So we'll see. But check in with your posture again. Just see if you started to slouch, sit up straight, or if you'd rather lay down, whatever. If you're seated though, try to make your spine, shoulders over hips. Take a big, nice, deep breath and close your eyes. We'll take a few breaths together. So come to the bottom of your exhale. Pause. And then inhale through your nose for 3, 2, 1. Holding at the top. Exhale through your nose for 3, 2, 1. Hold it at the bottom. Inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. Exhale through the nose, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your out breath. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. Press any last remaining bits of air out of the bottom of your lungs. Then big, deep belly breath in through the nose. Open your mouth and let it go. Do 2 more like that. Big, deep belly breath in through the nose. Open your mouth, audible exhale. Last one, big breath in. And let it go. Seal your lips back off. Let your eyelids stay heavy. Find a breath pace that feels good to you. With every exhale that you're taking, you're noticing that your body is more relaxed. Gently scanning from top to bottom, any places that might be holding extra tension. Just gently asking them to release. Picture in your mind's eye that you're standing at the entrance to a really serene looking forest. You can feel this breeze. The air is filled with really soothing sounds. You're barefoot. The earth is really soft underneath you. A pathway opens up right in front of you in this dense foresty area. You step into the path, you're really calm. Every step you take feels more and more relaxing. Kind of notice how the sunlight filters in through the leaves, creates this really beautiful dappled effect on the ground in front of you. Every sound you hear just produces more calm. As you're walking, you start to come to a little clearing in this dense kind of forest area. As you enter it, you notice a path that's leading to your sacred space. This space is uniquely yours. It could be any environment. It's your sanctuary. It's filled with all your favorite things. So you see yourself walking down this path. You're coming into view of your sacred space, whether it's a cottage or a garden or a mountaintop, it does not matter. But go ahead and go inside, if it's an inside sort of space. And just start exploring. What do you notice? If there are walls, what's on the walls? If there are sounds, what are the sounds? There's something in there to touch, touch it. Just get really familiar with where you are. Once you feel comfy, a chair is gonna magically appear in front of you, whatever kind of chair, whether it's a cushion on the floor or a fancy chair, doesn't matter, but you're gonna take a seat and there'll be another chair across from you. Just let yourself sit down, take in the space, take a few breaths. And then notice how the archetype of force comes into the room and sits down across from you. Maybe she looks exactly like the maiden in the card. Maybe she looks wildly different. Maybe she's the lion. It doesn't matter. You have an opportunity to have a conversation with her. You've invited her in. You're feeling comfortable. Ask her, what fears have I not yet faced? Not only what fears have I not yet faced, but how can I face them while being incredibly gentle with myself? Take your time with these answers, but know too that you can, in your mind's eye, write them down on pen and paper and then stick them in your imaginary left front pocket, and that will help you remember any details that you're wanting to remember. Then ask this archetype, where in my life am I being harsh? How can I soften my approach? How can I cultivate more respect and compassion for myself and others? And lastly, have a conversation with this archetype about boundaries. Ask yourself first, how do you feel about them? How do you feel about setting boundaries? How well do you maintain them? Are there people in your life that you find it's much easier to set and keep boundaries versus some people in your life where it's a challenge? Continue to ask her absolutely anything that comes to mind. Whatever can help you stand strong and balanced in your life. I will see you next week. Be sure to thank her as you exit the meditation.